I do all the laundry and I love it. And as I'm folding her laundry, I'm thinking of her and I'm thinking, I love doing this for you. And I don't expect anything in return. And the amazing thing is that I do get plenty in return. And it's way better than our system before.
You're listening to Get Your Marriage On, the fun and spicy podcast bringing you new tools and fresh ideas so that you can be the sexiest couple you know.
Hello and welcome to our first podcast episode for 2023. And thank you for listening and thanks for being here today. Are you a nice guy or married to a nice guy? Nice, and I put that in quotes, isn't to be confused with genuinely kind and caring. By nice, I mean one that hints around at what he wants from his wife, but doesn't really ask for it in case she doesn't want it either, or that it might upset her, or that he might be disappointed later. So he's just never really direct about what he wants, doesn't really own it. And his emotional center seems to be revolve around his wife rather than taking ownership for his own feelings. Or this is also the type of person that goes the extra mile for his wife, but has ulterior motives in it. And when he doesn't get what he wants, or when it doesn't kind of pan out the way he wants, even though he never clearly expressed what he wanted from the beginning, he feels gypped. My guest today is Brian Wagstaff. Brian is a member of my Next Level coaching program and a graduate of my men's coaching program. Brian is a successful entrepreneur and has a wonderful family and a recovering nice guy. Today, he shares his journey of recognizing his nice guy tendencies, the struggles he faced in his marriage, what changes he had to make and how he made them, and how his marriage and intimacy is tremendously better today than it was before. By the way, would you like to work with me and my team to take your marriage and intimacy to the next level in 2023? I invite you to check out my coaching program called Next Level. We open the doors from time to time, and now is the opportunity to join. The current deadline to join is Sunday, January 8th at midnight, so don't miss that. You'll find more information about it by going to my website, click on Coaching, and then Next Level. As of this recording, by the way, we also have 3 spots left for our upcoming couples marriage retreat. This retreat is in March, and these retreats are amazing and they go really in-depth and will guide you and your spouse through whatever challenges and obstacles you're currently facing, keeping you from deeper intimacy. These retreats are also a lot of fun. Sign up now by going to getyourmarriageon.com and click on Marriage Retreat. And now on to today's episode with Brian Wagstaff. Brian, welcome to the Get Your Marriage On podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing great.
Great. So to kick us off, maybe can you tell me of a time when you had a flirting fail, like flirting that went wrong?
Yeah, my wife didn't like washing my workout clothes because she said they were all sweaty and gross. And so she wanted something different. So she bought a little rack for me to hang up on our deck of our master bedroom so I could hang up my clothes and they could dry out there before she had to touch them when they were all sweaty and gross. And so I would walk out on the deck and take off my clothes and hang them up. And there was no one around. We lived in a really private area, so no one could see me or anything. But she always teased me about it. And she would say, oh, yeah, someone's going to see you. You shouldn't go out on our deck naked. But one time I was out there and I was hanging up my clothes and I heard someone on the deck below. I heard a voice, a deep voice say, "Are you naked?" And I freaked out because I thought it was someone next door. And I was like, I can't believe they could see me. I didn't imagine that. So I ran back inside and then I heard my wife on the lower deck laughing. Got me good. Then I kept doing this. And one time I went out on the deck and to hang up my clothes, but I was not naked actually. And I heard someone down on the lower deck. And so I said, I'm naked. And then come to find out
it was your wife.
Yes. And come to find out it was not my wife. It was actually, an exterminator that was there, like spraying for bugs. And so I was super embarrassed. And when he came to get the bill, I would not go to the front door. I sent my wife to the front door. So anyway, that's become a phrase that we use to flirt with each other. We'll say, "I'm naked," and maybe we are, maybe we're not, you know.
Uh-huh.
But it's just a little flirty thing that we do.
That's awesome. So
Sorry.
tell me about the early years of your marriage. What were they
So,
like?
well, when we first got married, we were both virgins. We grew up as LDS, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and so the wedding night was a big deal. I think like most people, we had quite a bit of sex in the beginning. Um, you know, that was
Right,
because
in
it
the
was
beginning of your marriage, you mean? Uh-huh.
yes, in the beginning of our marriage, not until we were married. But yeah, in the beginning of our marriage, we had quite a bit, and then it got to the point where I wanted it more than she did, um,
Mhm.
and it was I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months into marriage where she started wanting it less than I did. And I didn't think much of it until it started getting, a lot less. I wanted it a lot more than she did. And then we had quite a few fights early in our early days based on the fact that I wanted more than she did.
Mhm.
And so we'd have talks, hey, why don't you want it more? Um, and I didn't realize until recently that really I was seeking validation. It wasn't
Mhm.
it wasn't necessarily that I wanted more sex, it was that I wanted more validation from her. And
Gotcha,
so I
and
wanted
sex was very validating.
yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so for 20 some years of our marriage, it was kinda like that where I would get upset when she would say no, because to me that meant that there was something wrong with me or that she wasn't attracted to me, that she didn't find me desirable, that I wasn't measuring up as a husband, those kinds of things.
Mhm. Gotcha. So you measured, like, how good of a husband you are by how much sex you were getting. It was, like, the measure of, like, your marriage or whatever, in a way.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's I mean, I was seeking validation from her and from other people as well.
Mhm.
From my parents, or from work associates. I
Mhm.
was always trying to please everyone, and
Mhm.
I was trying to please my wife most of all.
Mhm.
And so if she didn't ever initiate, then I took that as, oh, she doesn't love me anymore,
Uh-huh.
or um, or that I'm not measuring up.
So what would you do if you wanted more validation from her when you felt it was lacking? How would you behave?
Well, I read a lot of books. When we first married, there was no internet, so I couldn't do any internet just to try and solve my problem. So I would go and find books to read, and a lot of the books that I read said things like, "Oh, if your wife doesn't want sex as much as you do, it's probably because she's too tired, she's busy with kids, she's got too many things on her plate, and you need to take some of those things off of her plate." So I started doing a lot of those things. I started helping around the house as much as I could. So cleaning, helping with laundry, helping with meals, helping with kids. Anytime she asked me to do anything with the kids, the answer was always yes. Oh yeah,
Uh-huh.
sure, sure. Yeah, yeah, I'll do that. And
And let me guess, she got really horny and wanted sex with you all the time once you started doing those things.
no, not at all.
No.
And yes, well, and I actually, I mean, I thought that it would happen that day, It's like, "Oh,
Uh,
I did the dishes." And then that night, I would wait for her to initiate and nothing
mhm.
would happen.
Uh-huh.
And so I would say, "Oh, well, I guess I've got to, clean the garage and, you know, I've
So you
got
double
to,
down, right?
do
Like,
that."
uh-huh,
Yep,
uh-huh.
yep, I need to do even more. And it still didn't happen. And then I would tell myself things like, okay, I'm not going to initiate. I'm going to let her initiate. I'm just going to keep doing nice things. I'm going to let her initiate. But then after,
Hopefully, like, create, like, a vacuum, this void, and then she will fill it with her initiating instead of you pursuing. Let her pursue, right? That was the
right.
mentality? Uh-huh. And let me
Yes.
guess.
And
I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna guess.
well, I would go, a week or maybe 2 weeks, and then I couldn't take it anymore. And I would have to initiate. And sometimes that worked and sometimes it didn't. And then sometimes I would get turned down and I would pout and I would go sleep on the couch or, to let her know that I was not happy. Um, and that was not very useful either. That didn't work. She never, if I went to sleep on the couch, she never said, "Oh, okay, come back to bed. Let's have sex
Uh,
and everything will be
uh-huh,
great."
uh-huh.
Never.
And so this is kind of like the way things operated for, like, 2 decades in your marriage.
Yeah. And
Eh
I mean, there were some good times. Like we would
Oh, of
go on
course.
vacation or I would, take her for a weekend getaway or something. And so there were some
Mhm,
really good times too.
mhm.
So, and it wasn't like I was like on the verge of leaving her or anything like that. You know,
It's not
it
like you're on the
was,
couch
it was
night after night for 20 years. We don't wanna that's not an
right.
accurate
No, it
picture.
wasn't
It's
like that
just
either.
uh, uh,
But I started to think, oh, well, it's me. It's something wrong with me. If I have this desire, then I just I've got to stop my desire. My desire is bad.
gotcha. Would you sometimes try to pray away your desire or things like that?
Um,
Or be ashamed
yeah,
that you have desire, I guess?
yeah, I would be ashamed. Like I would feel like, oh, well, I'm not supposed to want it this much. It's not normal. I even had thoughts of like, oh, I must be a sex addict if I want it more than she does.
Right, right, right. And then about 3 years ago, you told me you found a book. What book was it? What did you learn? How did this help you in your marriage?
So I found the book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, and it was a coach of mine that recommended that I read it. And when he first said this, he's like, "Yeah, I think you should read this book, No More Mr. Nice Guy." My thought was, "Well, what's wrong with being a nice guy? Why would I want to read this? I don't want to get rid of my nice guy."
Right, the title's a little, I don't know, abrasive, isn't it? Like, time to, like, flex your muscles and crack your knuckles. No more Mr. Nice Guy. Like, it's coming. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I had been taught that if you keep your wife happy, you'll have a happy life. Happy wife,
yes.
happy life. I had heard that in church meetings from men who were much older than me. They would say those kinds of things, and a lot of times they'd get a little bit of laughter. Someone
Uh-huh,
would say, "Happy wife, happy
uh-huh.
life." Everyone would laugh, ha ha ha. But I believed it, and I thought, "Oh, okay, so I'll do whatever I have to do to keep my wife happy." And I would take on like the responsibility of, or I mean, like if she was sick, then I would feel like that was my responsibility. It's like, oh, it's my fault. I've kept her up too late, or I haven't made sure that she eats well, or whatever. And so I started doing things like, oh, I've got to make sure that I take care of her, and and if she was sick, then I couldn't be happy.
Or if she had a bad day, you weren't allowed to be happy, or, like, you thought you were responsible for her emotions and her emotional state. Like, you're supposed to keep her happy because that's what good husbands do.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, at our wedding reception, someone came up and said, "Oh, you've got a good one here. You take care of her." And I interpret that to mean I've got to take care of her emotions. I've got to take care of her health. I'm in charge. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I I took that seriously and
Gotcha.
didn't realize that you can't make your wife happy. You can't make anyone happy.
Right, right.
So getting back to the book,
Yeah.
No More Mr. Nice Guy. Yeah. So I came across it a little over 3 years ago. And as I'm reading it, I'm thinking, oh, this is me. This is me. Oh, yeah, I'm a nice guy. And, and then I learned that nice is not the goal. that being kind is what we should be striving for, not nice. And there's a difference between being kind and being nice.
What did
And
you learn from
I
the book, what he defines as nice? Because I think we should define for our listeners that aren't familiar with this concept. I'm doing this in air quotes. Why is a nice guy actually really not very nice, really not really kind? What are the qualities of a quote unquote nice guy?
Well, it's because when you're being nice, you have a hidden agenda. You have um, ulterior motives. You're being nice because you want something in return. Um, and with me, this was very common. I would be nice because I wanted sex, and so I was doing things for the wrong reason. And the book calls doing those things a covert contract, where I will do all these things for you, these nice things, and then you will give me something in return, or you'll give me the love and attention that I deserve. Um, and when you don't get it, then you can't figure out why. You're like, I'm doing all these things. How come I'm not getting it? And you don't understand that you're being needy, you're being manipulative, and you're turning the relationship into a transaction, or you're making it transactional. And that is not attractive. And you're basically treating your wife like a prostitute.
That's right,
And
because you're trying to buy sex through your actions or service or being really extra kind while betraying yourself along the way.
yeah, and it's not genuine, and you're not being honest with her. You're not being honest with yourself.
Mhm.
Um, and I didn't realize what I was doing. And I've apologized to her many, many times, saying, "Oh, I can't believe that I was doing that and that I was treating you that way."
Mhm. So is the solution then to be really, I don't know, unkind to your wife and not nice and make her fend for herself? And I'm
Well,
joking as I say this, but tell me
yes.
more. What did you learn next?
Well, after reading the book, I thought there's got to be some kind of groups of men that are working on this stuff, and I found a group and went to meet with them and met a bunch of guys that were going through the same thing that I was, and thought it was great. It was like, wow, this is awesome. Um, and I went to it a couple of months or so, but I started to realize that I wasn't really getting from it what I wanted, and that was, I think, because a lot of the guys took it too far, where they started telling me, "Oh, you can't do any of those nice things or kind things. Yeah, you can't do any of those things for your wife. You've got to stop doing all of them and show her who's boss."
Uh-huh.
And so they're telling me to, stop doing all of them. And I did try that for a little while, and I I don't know. It was just weird. It didn't feel right. I was like, yeah,
No.
this does this really work? And it was like, or is this just temporary? And then I go back to, you know, being kind. Um,
Uh-huh.
and I did talk to one of the men in the group, and I said, "Hey, wouldn't it be okay if I did things for my wife if I did them for the right reason?" And he said,
Mhm.
"Yes, yes, yes. That's the key. That's right."
Mhm.
And so I felt like I missed that somewhere along the way, and a lot of those men I think missed it somewhere. That it's not about don't do anything kind, don't do anything to serve your wife. It's about, when you do those things, do it for the right reason. Do it because you're kind and loving, and don't do it because you expect anything in return.
Mm.
So when you stop having those expectations, then it changes things in a wonderful way.
The heart of the quote unquote nice guy approach is validation seeking. You're trying to win validation by being overly nice and for the wrong reasons, right? What was
Right.
it for you? What was a shift you noticed in you when it came to uh, how you earned your own self respect? How did you get your own validation? What's the new way you came to find that?
Well, I've learned that you have to get your validation through things that don't change. Um, and and that would be that you are a child of God, that you're a
Yes.
son of God. And that
Uh,
that doesn't change. What God thinks of you will never change.
mhm.
What your wife thinks of you could change. Your look,
Right.
those can change. Even your smarts. If you're thinking about, oh, I'm great because of how smart I am, that can change. You could lose that all in a car accident or whatever. So yeah, not looking for validation from things that are fluid or that are changeable. Things that
Right.
you want to be grounded in something that's rock solid and never going to change. And the best one for me is that I am a child of God.
That's really good. How about seeking sex for validation? What are some of the new shifts that you noticed in you about how you saw sex as validation? Now, don't get me wrong, sex is very validating. Sex is great, and there's nothing wrong with validation in and of itself, but it's the pursuing of it for the wrong reasons, and that was a shift that happened in you when it came to sex. What was that like?
Well, the shift basically has gone to I no longer take no as that she doesn't love me.
Ah,
No just means not right now or not, not tonight. And I'm no longer worried, oh, if we can't have it tonight, then who knows how long it'll be. I don't worry about that anymore. Now it's more I I know that you love me. I know that we have a great relationship. I know that we will have an opportunity another night. And so I'm not going to worry about it tonight. I don't even take it as a rejection anymore. It's just like, oh, you don't want pizza tonight? Oh, okay. Well, then that's fine.
that's good. That's a lot healthier approach for an intimate relationship, isn't it?
Yes.
And then, uh, what else has really made your intimacy in your marriage, like, move to the next level?
Well, this last summer, I saw on my wife's phone that she had an app. She had an app on her phone for intimacy or sex. I can't remember what the name of the app was, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. I want to get the same app and we'll work on this together. So I did that for a little while, and then we got to the point where it was like, yeah, this isn't that great. I'm gonna look for another app. And so I found another one, and same thing. I looked at it, I don't know, for a few days and decided, nope, this isn't it either. I did a little more searching, and I found the Intimately Us app, and I loved it from the beginning. I was like, oh, this is great, and she loved it too. And then I learned that the Dan was the creator of the app, and I thought I want to get a hold of this guy and talk with him. So I I googled him and found his email address, um, and so then Dan and I got to meet each other and do a Zoom and learn more. And so this has been a fun and exciting ride that I've been on in the last 3 or 4 months.
That's great. So how do things look on your marriage now compared to how they were before, even, like, before the summer?
They look uh, very different, and it's been so much fun. For example, through the app, when you had the Sextember challenge,
Uh-huh,
well, actually, let me go back a little bit. Before that, I had listened to a podcast where it was one of your podcasts where one of the black belt sex tips was to not have sex for like 2 weeks or
uh-huh.
have a sex fast, as we like to call it. And so we had decided that we were gonna do that, and so we put it on the calendar in the app. Okay, this is when we're gonna have our sex fast. And then not too long after that, my wife said, "Wait a minute, we can't do it in September. We can't do it during Sextember." we've got to change this. And
Mhm.
that was really fun for me. It was like, oh wow, I didn't even know she knew about the Sextember challenge, and she wants to do that. So I was really excited. That was fun.
So tell me more about Sextember. Now, if you're not familiar with Sextember, this is a challenge we do in the month of September where you have 30 days to improve intimacy in your marriage. And you and your wife did this challenge. What did you learn from it? What was your experience like?
Well, one of the things that I really liked with it was that we'd have sex for just, I mean, like a short time. It could be just like 15 minutes before she got ready for work. And because we were like trying to do this, every day. And what I learned was that a quickie is not a bad thing.
Uh-huh.
Somewhere along the way, I started associating a quickie with pity sex or duty sex.
Ah,
And so I thought, "Oh, I don't ever want a quickie." But since now that I've changed my attitude or my view of intimacy, now it's like, "Oh, 15 minutes is great." And it can be a lot of fun, and it can be, really bonding. And so, um, 15 minutes a day or whatever you can get in the time you have is there's nothing wrong with that.
that's so good. Good. You also were a part of the men's coaching program that I put on. What was your experience like going through that program? What did you learn? What are some of the highlights for you? Things like that.
Well, I learned that there are a lot of guys that are just like me. I mean, we're all different, but it's amazing how learning from these other guys, I started to say, "Oh yeah, we have that same problem, or we went through that same thing." Um, and I've just learned that I'm not alone, and that that because I want a sexual relationship with my wife doesn't make me a dirty person or a bad person. That even as a Christian, even as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter Day Saints, it's okay. I mean, to have these wants and these desires.
Not only okay, it's good. There's so much goodness that comes from sex, from a good sex life. There's happiness and joy. There's a bounce in one's step, a smile on a person's face. There's closeness. There's beauty. There's depth. There's so much good that comes from good, healthy sexual relationships.
Yes, yeah, amen. I agree with that, and it's a message that we don't hear anywhere else. We don't hear this at church.
What would you say, would your advice to someone else if they were kind of in a situation where they wanted more sex in their relationship, um, they weren't getting it, they're trying all the things, what would your advice be to them to really, figure out what they need to do, the next step to improve their marriage?
Well, I think first of all, you have to be open to asking the question, why why am I not getting it? What is unattractive about what I'm doing? Why is my approach not attractive? What is she attracted to? And what is it that I'm doing that's unattractive? Because I didn't realize how unattractive it is to be pouty and needy and to beg and begging for sex doesn't work. And the sex that you get is not it's not enjoyable.
No, not at all. All right, Brian, let's say a couple's listened to this episode. They've figured a lot of things out with the nice guy stuff, and they're a lot better with their motives. What would you say is your black belt sex tip to make their sex life really go to the next level?
So I kind of mentioned this before, but my black belt sex tip would be that when you're doing things for your wife, do them for the right reason. Don't do it because you're expecting sex. Do it because you are kind, you're loving, and it's the right thing to do. I mean, it's the right thing to do to help with the dishes, to help with the cleaning, to do your share of of the work around the house. And so one day my wife told me, she said, "Oh, I love a made bed." And in the past, I always thought, why make the bed? You're just going to mess it up again. No one's going to see it, so who cares? But when she said, "I love a made bed," then I decided, okay, I'm going to make the bed every day. And I've started doing that, and I love doing it. I love doing that for her. And as I'm making the bed, I'm not thinking, "Oh, okay. Oh, well, I'm going to get sex because I'm making the bed." Um, I'm thinking, I love my wife. I'm serving her, and I love doing this for her. And I've started doing her laundry as well. And when we were first married, I hated laundry. Every Saturday we would do laundry and we would clean, and I hated it. And I told her, I said, "I will scrub toilets for you before doing laundry." But now I do all the laundry, and I love it. And as I'm folding her laundry, I'm thinking of her, and I'm thinking, I love doing this for you, and I don't expect anything in return. And the amazing thing is that I do get plenty in return. And I mean, I get a lot in return now, and it's way better than our system before.
That is so good. That is so wise. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
Ah, you're welcome.
And thanks for being here today.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. This is a subject that I mean, at first I was a little bit hesitant to talk about these kinds of things, but it's something that I really like, especially with you, Dan, because you make me so comfortable.
Thanks.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of Get Your Marriage On. And if you did, we would love it if you would take a few seconds to give us a rating on iTunes and to share the show with your friends. They'll thank you for life. Once you've done that, you can head over to getyourmarriageon.com for more resources about today's topic and to download our amazing marriage apps. Now go get your marriage on.